I always thought the day I received my biggest professional reward would feel like fireworks. It didn't. It felt like a quiet click, the kind you hear when a door locks behind you. At 34, I'd been working in architecture for over a decade, climbing the ladder not by networking or charm, but by putting in the hours no one else would. I stayed late, skipped weekends, postponed vacations. My salary was good, but nothing extravagant. I budgeted like someone raised on scarcity, because I was. When the city awarded me a $700,000 bonus for leading the redevelopment of an entire district in downtown Denver, I sat in the HR office stunned. "Congratulations," my boss had said, sliding the envelope across the desk. "You earned every penny. You made this city look better, and think bigger." On my way home, I didn't call anyone, not yet. I stopped by a bookstore, picked up a bottle of wine, and thought maybe, just maybe, I'd start browsing homes. I didn't need much. Just a place that was mine, where no one else had a key or an opinion. I remembered what my old mentor once told me. Money doesn't change who you are, it reveals what you've endured. And God had I endured. But the real test wasn't what I'd been through, it was what I was about to walk into. That night, I went to dinner at my parents' house. The smell of arroz con pollo filled the air. My father, Jasper, was fiddling with the thermostat like he always did. My mother, Marisol, smiled faintly when she saw me, then returned to chopping cilantro like nothing special had happened. I sat at the table, still holding on to the hope that maybe this time they'd say something genuine. "We're proud of you," or even "you did it." Instead, halfway through dinner, while scooping rice onto his plate, my father said, "So we figured you'd give us 50% and 30% for your brother. No excuses." I didn't answer immediately. My mother didn't look up. She just stirred the beans like this was some budget meeting we'd agreed to. No mention of my promotion. No congratulations. I stared at them. They didn't flinch. "I'm sorry?" I asked. "You've always been good with money," my dad said. "You know what needs to be done." Marisol added, "We're not asking for anything unreasonable." They had rehearsed this. I put down my fork. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was practiced, a kind of emotional ambush. My father reached behind the fruit bowl and pulled out a folded paper, lined notebook, hand-drawn columns, expenses, distributions, totals. At the bottom, my name, already signed. I recognized it. The signature was real, just not for this. It was lifted from an old document I'd signed years ago for a home loan refinance. "You forged my signature?" I kept my voice flat. Jasper waved it off. "We copied it. It's all in the family." "Uncle Felix already knows," my mother added. "We told him it's handled." I didn't get angry, not yet. Anger felt too small for what I felt. "I need the bathroom," I said quietly. Once the door clicked shut behind me, I leaned against the sink and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady. I wasn't going to cry. I needed clarity, not emotion. I opened my messages. There it was. A text from Lucian. "Thanks, baby sis. I'll put it to good use. You've always been the real MVP." My heart didn't sink. It calcified. So, it was a done deal. He already believed the money was his. They had planned it. Told him I agreed. I scrolled up. No previous messages from Lucian in weeks. No check-ins. No, "How are you?" Just this. They didn't even bother to check if I'd say yes. I stared at my reflection. "You're not here for a fight," I reminded myself. "You're here to remember everything." I reread Lucian's message again, not with hurt, but with analysis. They hadn't betrayed me. That would require acknowledgement of my loyalty in the first place. No, they had used me like always, only this time with higher stakes. In that mirror, I saw someone who used to think sacrifice was the language of love. I now saw it as the currency of control. I thought about the times I didn't go to Greece with friends, the nights I skipped dinner dates, the projects I delayed applying to because Lucian needed help or Mom had a dentist bill. The bonus was supposed to be mine, not just the money, but the joy, the pause, the exhale. I remembered something I read once. Givers need to set boundaries because takers don't have any. That was it. They didn't see me. They saw what I could provide. I flushed the toilet to make it believable and stepped out, shoulders squared. Back at the table, the conversation had shifted to Lucian's idea of starting a car detailing business. My father nodded along like he was mentoring Elon Musk. I sat down, picked up my glass, took a sip. "No, I'll think about it," I said. Jasper smirked. "Knew you'd come around." But while they went on about interest rates and Lucian's vision, I was already writing the first line of a new blueprint. Not for them, for me. I didn't slam the car door. I didn't speed off. I pulled out of my parents' driveway like I had a casserole in the back seat, not like I'd just been told I owed my family a majority share of my life's work. The streets of Denver were quiet. Streetlights flickered over the hood of my sedan, and all I could hear was the soft hum of tires against asphalt. I turned off the radio. I didn't want distraction. I needed clarity. That dinner, it felt like walking into a celebration that turned into a sales pitch. I passed by a building I'd helped design years ago. There was a coffee shop on the first floor now. I'd spent nights perfecting that curved facade, arguing with engineers over glass tension. No one remembered. No plaque. Just customers sipping lattes under the awning, oblivious. They always said family was everything. Tonight, it felt like it was the invoice. Was this always the plan? I murmured aloud, gripping the steering wheel tighter. A billboard on Colfax caught my eye, blue and white, bold font. "You deserve more." It wasn't meant for me, but I took it anyway. Back in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and poured myself a glass of water. I sat at the edge of the bed, still in my work clothes, phone face up beside me. I knew I shouldn't revisit the conversation, but my mind kept dragging me back. Dad had said it like it was the weather. "You'll marry out. This family needs to survive." It wasn't just the demand for money, it was the assumption that I was temporary, a support beam meant to be removed once the real structure, Lucian, was secure. What was I then? A dowry? A placeholder? They never saw me as someone who'd build legacy, just someone who'd foot the bill for someone else's. "Lucian needs this. You'll understand when you're a mother." That was another gem from Mom. She used it like a trump card, as if not having children made me less capable of understanding responsibility. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a contingency plan. The next morning, my phone buzzed 3 times before I even made coffee. Voicemail 1. Marisol. "Odessa, honey. Lucian might lose the house if you don't step in soon. He's been through so much. Just think about what that would do to your brother." Voicemail 2. Marisol again. "Your father hasn't been sleeping. He keeps asking if he failed you somehow. We raised you better than this, didn't we?" Voicemail 3. Jasper. "You know, if something happens to your brother, if he does something stupid, I hope you can live with that." My stomach turned. Not from guilt, but from the sharp clarity of manipulation. That wasn't care. That wasn't love. That was coercion. I forwarded all 3 messages to a folder I created the night before. Evidence. Family pressure. If love has to come with strings, is it still love? Or just a contract no one told me I signed? By noon, I was seated on my balcony, laptop open. I logged into a legal advice forum anonymously. I typed, "Can a family member forge your signature to claim financial agreement?" Replies flooded in within the hour. Most said the same. Get documentation. Build a timeline. Protect yourself. I opened a fresh spreadsheet and labeled it Transfers since 2016. I scrolled through years of Venmo receipts, bank statements, tax records, every payment to my parents, every bailout for Lucian, every emergency wire transfer. Thousands, tens of thousands. And not once did they say thank you like they meant it. In a notebook beside me, I wrote a single sentence. If being generous made me a target, maybe silence will make me invisible enough to be free. I called my therapist later that afternoon. "They've started using guilt as currency again," I said. She sighed. "That's not surprising. But remember, you're not responsible for how others react to your boundaries." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I didn't even get to enjoy the win," I added. "They weren't going to let you." It wasn't bitterness I felt. It was awareness, a growing understanding that some people only clap when they're getting a cut. That evening, I sat on the floor of my living room with a glass of wine and my old laptop. I searched for an email chain from 4 years ago. One where Lucian had admitted, on record, that the money I gave him was off the books, so it wouldn't interfere with his disability claims. There it was. Found it. The thread ended with, "You saved me, oh. I'll never forget this." My finger hovered over the print button, and then I clicked. If they wanted numbers, I'd give them numbers. Just not the ones they were expecting. The morning after their voicemails, I walked into the office with a steady breath and a tighter bun. I always wore black when I needed distance. Today, I chose navy. Approachable. Unreadable. "Morning, Odessa," Liz said, holding her coffee cup high like a peace offering. "That bonus of yours still blowing minds. I'd be on a beach by now." I smiled. Not the big one, just enough to acknowledge I heard her. Inside, my cubicle was exactly how I left it. Tidy, symmetrical, clinical. On the wall was a sticky note I'd written months ago. "Your silence won't protect you." It used to mean something else. Now, it read like a dare. I opened my inbox. 32 unread emails. Project timelines. Budget approvals. Life went on, indifferent to betrayal. I replied, scheduled meetings, red-line drawings, until my phone buzzed. A WhatsApp notification from the family group. I hesitated before opening it. I knew it would hurt, and I opened it anyway. Aunt Rosa had forwarded one of those memes with a baby in a graduation cap, captioned, "Some people forget who changed their diapers once they get a little bonus." 2 laughing emojis, a thumbs up from cousin Natalia. Then came Marisol. "We did our part. It's her turn to step up." No name, no tag, but the room spun anyway. They'd turned the group into a courtroom where I was on trial, and everyone had already voted. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it. I screen captured every message and filed it under defamation, internal. Back at my desk, I typed for 5 minutes straight without seeing the words. My hands were moving, but my brain was elsewhere. They didn't come up with this overnight. They had been waiting, planning. All they needed was a trigger, and I gave it to them, the second I chose myself. That afternoon, I got another text, this time from my cousin Letitia. "Hey, I think you should know." Attached was a voicemail she said she accidentally recorded while in the car with our uncle Javier and Lucian. "I told her not to make a scene," Javier's voice said. Lucian replied, "She's acting like she's some self-made savior. She's been lucky, that's all." Then a third voice I couldn't place. "We told people she refused to help. If it gets ugly, they'll remember that part." The clip ended. Letitia followed up. "I didn't agree with what they said. I just didn't say anything." I didn't answer her either. I saved the file. Named it. Smear Prepared MP3. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was strategy. I was never family. I was a PR narrative that needed spinning when I stopped playing along. Later that night, I sat with my laptop open and my journal on my lap. I couldn't write anything yet. I kept hearing Lucian's voice saying I was lucky. Lucky. He didn't see me crying at my desk at 1 a.m. reviewing blueprints that no one else would double-check. He didn't know I canceled a trip to Paris with college friends because Mom's dental surgery cost more than she let on. He never found out I delayed grad school by a year because Lucian just needed a temporary loan to keep his first business alive, the one that failed 6 months later. None of those sacrifices were counted. Only the moment I said no. I opened a drawer and pulled out an old notebook. Inside was a page from a session with my therapist. No is a full sentence. It echoed now like a war drum. The pattern had always been there. Give, be loved. Pause, be punished. That wasn't parenting. That was control training. In that quiet apartment, I realized something terrifying. They didn't hate that I had money. They hated that I had autonomy. Autonomy meant options. Options meant I might one day choose a life where they weren't the center. I stood, walked to the fridge, poured myself a glass of water, stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. "This isn't new," I whispered. It wasn't. I'd been living with this since I was 12 and skipped my piano recital because Lucian sprained his ankle and cried until everyone canceled their plans to stay home. Even back then, his pain eclipsed my progress. I picked up my phone, saw 2 missed calls from Marisol. I didn't need to hear the message. I already knew the script. I let the 3rd one ring out, watched it go to voicemail. Then I waited. It came. Her voice was lower than usual, coded in urgency, not warmth. "It's already spreading," she said. "You'd better call me back before more people hear." I didn't. I pressed play again, and whispered to no one. Let them hear. Maybe then, just maybe, they'd know who she really was. I wasn't surprised to get the invitation. I was surprised it took them 2 whole days to send it. "Family only," the message said. "Dinner at the Grandview Banquet Hall. Dad's birthday." I stared at the screen for a full minute. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, the one that had grown used to documenting everything, knew this could be important. I needed to see how far they'd take it, needed to witness what my silence had let them think they could get away with. I arrived 10 minutes early, not out of excitement. I needed time to study the environment, to breathe through the performance. The room was loud, lit with cheap gold fixtures, decorated in burgundy and beige, like someone had Googled classy party and bought everything on sale. The moment I walked in, eyes landed on me, some polite, some dismissive, a few outright cold. The ones who had heard rumors but didn't want to admit they believed them. The kind who say, family is complicated, while letting others get devoured for sport. I smiled at the hostess, gave her my name. She scanned the list and gestured. "You're at table 4, all the way in the back." I followed her through rows of round tables topped with linen napkins and flickering LED candles. When we got there, I stopped short. Next to the restroom, behind the buffet trays, the furthest seat from the cake table. I said nothing, sat down, straightened the hem of my dress, watched from a distance as Lucian took his place between Jasper and Marisol. Center table, center spotlight, center of everything. Again. A voice behind me laughed softly. "Oh, are you working tonight?" I turned. Aunt Rosa, holding her wine like a scepter. Her eyes sparkled, full of amusement, not kindness. I didn't respond. Across the room, Jasper stood up, raised his glass. "To family," he said. "To unity. To the ones who show up." The crowd clapped. Lucian beamed. Marisol dabbed her eyes. I sat, clapped once, sipped my water, and marked the moment. They didn't forget me. They placed me, deliberately, to remind me where they thought I belonged. Midway through the main course, Lucian stood and waved to the DJ booth. "Play it now," he said. The lights dimmed. A screen dropped down from the ceiling. Jasper's life in photos, smiling in the navy, holding Lucian as a baby, laughing beside Marisol at a barbecue. Scene after scene rolled by, but none with me. I watched, unmoving, as the montage played. At one point, I recognized the setting. A community gala 2 years ago. I'd handed Jasper an award, gave a speech, hugged him on stage. In the video, the same event flashed, but Lucian was in the frame, waving from the crowd. My segment had been erased. Deliberate, sharp, clean. Erasure masquerading as tribute. No one reacted, not a single turned head. The video ended. People clapped. I did too. Quiet, controlled. My hands, however, shook beneath the table. Marisol leaned toward me. "We didn't have your clips, honey. You never send us things on time." I stared ahead. The footage was on the family drive. I uploaded it myself. Months ago, labeled and dated. I said nothing. Lucian caught my eye and winked. That broke something. I stood, left my napkin on the chair, marched out before dessert. No one followed. Outside, I inhaled the crisp air. Denver evenings in spring always carried a bite. Tonight, it matched my mood. I unlocked my phone, opened Google Drive, found the folder. Every clip they couldn't find was right there. Me handing the award, Dad wiping a tear, the audience standing to clap. I watched a few seconds, then selected them all, emailed them to myself. Subject line, inheritance insurance. History can be edited, but not when you hold the master files. I returned to work the Monday after the party with a calm so sharp it could cut marble. There was no fire in my chest anymore, just steel. "Hey, Odessa, didn't you go to that big dinner thing Friday?" Brian asked while refilling his coffee. "Heard it was some big family bash." "Mm-hmm," I replied, organizing the site plans on my screen. He laughed. "No wild stories. Come on, don't leave me hanging." "Nothing wild," I said. "Just familiar." The conversation died there. That was fine. I didn't come here to talk. I moved through my day like a machine. Clear inbox, signed contracts, client calls. By lunch, I'd restructured the entire timeline on our primary build. My coworkers thought I was thriving. Truth was, I was insulating. When I got back from my 1 o'clock meeting, a text was waiting. From Claire, a college friend. "Girl, Lucian just posted. You're gonna want to see this." I clicked the link. There he was, standing in front of a shiny, metallic gray SUV with an exaggerated smile and sunglasses perched on his forehead. The caption read, "Family is the best investment. Grateful for my favorite sponsor, #legacy, had, built, not given." He tagged our parents, not me. The comments came quickly. "You're such a rock, man. Your dad must be so proud. True provider for your family. Respect." I stared at the screen, not blinking. My thumb hovered over the power button. Instead, I screenshot it, saved it into my documentation folder under Public Image Manipulation, 01. It wasn't the car that bothered me. It was the ease, the confidence with which he took credit, not just for a vehicle, but for a narrative, one that erased me again. How many lies can one photo tell when paired with the right hashtag? 2 days later, I stopped at a small Latino grocery store after work. I needed plantains and ground cumin, nothing special, nothing that should have ended in humiliation. I was pushing my cart down the second aisle when a woman from my parents' church approached. Her name was Gloria. I remembered her because she always wore red lipstick that bled into her lip lines. "Odessa," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I hope your father forgives you." I blinked. "Excuse me?" She leaned in. "We all have our rebellious phases. Just make it right before it's too late." I didn't answer. Her voice lowered. "We've been praying for your heart to soften." I nodded once, calm, composed. Then she pulled out her phone. "You probably haven't seen this," she whispered. She opened a church WhatsApp group and scrolled. There it was. Screenshots of Lucian's fundraiser. Messages from Marisol about feeling abandoned. Jasper's comments about raising a daughter who forgot what family means. And replies, support. From people I've hugged, cooked for, sat next to at Christmas Mass. They didn't tag me, but they knew what they were doing. I asked, "Gloria, did anyone ask me why I haven't helped?" She paused. "We assumed you had your reasons." "No, you assumed I didn't." She looked away. I walked off without waiting for her reply. When I got to the checkout, I opened the chat again, screenshot everything, stored it. Label, Community Smear Campaign. At home, I dropped the groceries on the counter and sat in silence. Not stunned, just hollowed out. In my journal, I wrote, "I don't owe anyone an explanation for my boundaries." Then I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my attorney. Subject, defamation liability, public narrative involvement. I didn't plan to sue, not yet, but I wanted everything ready. The more they lied, the more material they gave me. This wasn't revenge, it was record-keeping. That evening, I booked an appointment with a local journalist, under a pseudonym, not to expose, not yet, just to know what the options were. A buffer, a back pocket. I once believed that success would shield me from this. That achievement gave you immunity. All it did was make me a better target. They taught me how to be generous. But they never imagined I'd learn how to keep records. Right before bed, my phone buzzed. Lucian had just posted a new fundraiser. Help me keep my family's legacy alive. I clicked. There was a photo of the house. A paragraph about how he'd sacrificed everything. And then, my name. In the absence of ongoing support from my sister Odessa, I'm asking our community to help keep this home in our family. He didn't even ask, didn't warn me, just threw me in, like I was some trust fund villain. I stared at the screen, opened my email, started typing. If they want to go public, I hit save on the draft. Then let's make it honest. I didn't flinch when I opened the folder labeled Family Contributions, 5 years. It was late Sunday morning. The sun filtered through the blinds, casting long lines across my desk. My coffee had already gone cold. Every receipt, every transfer, every guilt-wrapped favor, they were all here, sorted by year, color-coded by recipient. They say receipts are for taxes. I say they're for trauma. Some people keep photo albums. I kept evidence, bank statements, Venmo screenshots, email threads, confirmation after confirmation of what I had given. I stared at them, not to relive the past, but to remind myself I wasn't imagining the weight I'd carried. "You were too generous," my therapist once said. "No," I had replied. "I was strategic. I just didn't know who the opponent was." I scrolled past a folder I hadn't opened in years. Mom. Trust. The file name alone gave me pause. I clicked. Inside was a scan of a letter from her insurance company. A claim confirmation dated 5 days after her death. A payout of $300,000. I read it twice, then a third time. My jaw clenched. I cross-checked it with the dissolution date of the trust, exactly 1 week after her funeral. I remembered pacing the hospital hallway, waiting for billing. I remembered handing over my credit card for radiation, medication, palliative care, all while Jasper sat at home, sipping coffee, watching baseball. He had access to that money. The entire time. I dug deeper. And there it was, an old handwritten letter tucked in the scans. My mother's cursive was unmistakable. "For Odessa, in case I'm not here." I read it aloud. "You've always been the one who didn't ask for anything, and that's what makes me worry most. I wanted to make sure you had something for yourself." I told him that, over and over. I closed my eyes. It was her guilt, folded into a letter I was never meant to find. I didn't cry. I scanned the page and uploaded it to my legal folder, labeled it Hidden Trust Acknowledgement. Then I reopened my financial binder, flipping through tabs until I reached the home refinancing documents. Back when Jasper and Marisol said they were on the verge of losing the house, when they asked me to co-sign, just for paperwork. I looked at the deed, my name, not theirs. I was the legal owner. I had forgotten, or maybe they had made me forget. I remember the day I signed. They said it would just be temporary. Until things stabilize. Stabilize for whom? The property tax records were still in my name. No transfers filed, no notarized updates, not a single request to return what I had temporarily rescued. Yet Lucian stood in his fundraiser videos calling it his father's legacy, his family's inheritance. They erased me from photos, but not from the law. I whispered the words out loud, then wrote them in my notebook. I stood from the desk and walked to the window. The view didn't feel different, but I did. Ownership wasn't just paper, it was acknowledgement, and they had denied me both. I didn't reach for the phone. I didn't text anyone, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need their reactions to validate my reality. I sat back down, reread my mother's letter, this time not as a grieving daughter, but as a woman who saw the trap and finally, fully, stepped out of it. The kindness they demanded from me wasn't love, it was compliance. I opened a new document. Subject, potential fraud, next steps. Body, attached are scans related to the trust funds and property ownership in question. I would like to discuss preliminary legal positioning for a countersuit. Please advise on discovery timelines and statute constraints for silent fraud in family estates. I signed my name, not out of anger, out of certainty. I saved the document, printed a hard copy, slipped it into a folder marked active. Later that afternoon, I logged into the Denver County Records portal. I typed in the address of the house, and there it was. A new mortgage application, filed 2 days prior. Applicant, Jasper Hale. Co-signer, Odessa Quinn. Pending signature. I stared at the screen. They hadn't just stolen my money. They were trying to use me again, this time as collateral. I closed the tab, closed the laptop, and whispered to myself, let's see how they handle exposure. There's a type of silence that doesn't comfort. It tightens around your ribs like a seatbelt just before a crash. That's what work felt like now. Every time I walked into a meeting room, conversations paused a second too long. Every "Hey Odessa" was coated with a cautious layer I hadn't earned. Not here. I started noticing views on my LinkedIn from anonymous accounts, more traffic than usual. The type of digital footprint that doesn't announce itself, but leaves smudges. Paranoia is survival when you're the only one who sees the trap. My mentor used to say that, back when I thought ambition could be neatly measured in promotion cycles. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being targeted. I started documenting, time-stamped interactions, notes on subtle shifts. Emails I used to skim now got printed, PDF'd, backed up to 3 different folders. I wasn't prepping for war. I was proving they started it. Tuesday morning, HR called me in. Odessa, do you have a moment? I nodded and followed the director, Donna, into the glass conference room. She looked calm, but practiced, like someone delivering news they didn't write. We got a call, she said, folding her hands, from someone claiming to be the CEO of your last firm. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. They asked about your ethics, said there may be concerns about your involvement in questionable financial transfers. I didn't flinch. Did they give their name? They said you'd know who it was. Of course. I leaned forward slightly. Do you have the call recorded? Dana paused. For internal reasons, yes. I'd like a copy for my legal files. Her mouth opened, then closed. We'll check with compliance. I nodded. Great. Back at my desk, I opened the number they'd logged. A burner. Traced through an old record linked to Jasper's tax filings, one I'd pulled months ago when helping with his refinancing. He didn't just try to smear me online. He tried to dismantle my credibility at work. My father, the man who told everyone he raised a strong daughter. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with an alert from my credit monitor. A new loan inquiry. Institution, first-line commercial funding. Applicant, Lucian Frost. Business name, Frost Concepts, LLC. Co-signer, Odessa Quinn. My breath stilled. Co-signer. I hadn't signed a damn thing. Then I saw the address listed as the LLC's registered office, my apartment. I was halfway to the bank before I realized I hadn't even changed out of my blazer. The manager at the branch confirmed it. Yes, Ms. Quinn. This is the loan packet we received. Co-residency with Mr. Frost, plus familial connection. Standard criteria for soft approval. He doesn't live with me. I understand. Do you want to open a dispute? Immediately. She handed me a form. I filled it out without blinking. Also, I added, flag this account. I want every inquiry or activity connected to my name reported directly to me, no exceptions. When I got home, I uploaded screenshots, scanned the notarized statement, labeled it Frost Fraud, Commercial Misuse. No one shouted, no one screamed, but damage doesn't always make noise. That night, I didn't call anyone. I emailed my lawyer. Subject, escalation confirmed, fraudulent intent. Evident body, attached are documents supporting fraudulent credit activity tied to my legal residence and digital evidence linking a false HR report to my father. Requesting we move forward with discovery on identity misuse and career defamation. I scheduled a second call, this time with a private investigator. I needed a paper trail for the LLC Lucian registered. I needed to know who else was involved. All my life, I thought being needed meant being loved. Turns out, it meant being used. The next morning, I asked my assistant to cancel every family gathering or invitation indefinitely. No exceptions, I said. I won't be attending anything personal until further notice. He nodded, didn't ask why. I spent the rest of the afternoon reading up on asset freezing, digital forensics, and restraining order processes. Not because I was afraid, but because the battlefield had shifted. They weren't trying to hurt my feelings anymore. They were trying to collapse my foundation. That evening, as I was finishing a project timeline, my boss walked by. "Hey, Odessa, mind stepping into my office for a moment?" I stood, grabbed my laptop, and followed. He closed the door. "We just got another anonymous tip. Says you may have stolen intellectual property from a family business that was never registered." My fingers tightened around the laptop. He continued, "It's probably nothing, but we're required to document and investigate." "I understand," I said. I pulled out a file I'd prepared weeks ago. Label: Project Genesis. Copyright registered 2019. I created this in my apartment, 2 years before Lucian ever dreamed of Frost Concepts. He nodded, took the file. "We'll do our due diligence." I walked out calmly, past the receptionist, stepped into the cool night air. "They're trying to burn the ground under me," I whispered. But they forgot. I designed the floor plan. Friday morning, I opened the door expecting the usual Amazon delivery. Instead, a man in a navy jacket and cap handed me a thick envelope and asked me to sign. "Service of process," he said. I didn't blink. I thanked him and closed the door. Back at my desk, I sliced it open with the corner of a credit card. Inside, legal papers from Jasper and Marisol. They were suing me. "Filial abandonment," the header read. They were demanding financial compensation, emotional damages, elder neglect, lost property support. Of course they were. They were using the law the same way they used love, selectively, strategically. I stood slowly, walked to my filing cabinet, and pulled out a tab marked, "For when they finally snap." I didn't feel anger. I felt ready. I texted my attorney, just 3 words. "It's go time." We met that afternoon. "These are impressive," he said, flipping through the packet. Screenshots of the fundraiser, community chat threads, falsified email drafts. "You've been preparing." "They've been sloppy," I replied. He laughed quietly. "The suit itself is built on emotion, not evidence." "They counted on that working." "They don't know who they're suing." He held up the suit papers, tapping a paragraph. "They've included community gossip threads, GoFundMe blurbs, and, what is this? A forged agreement with your name on it?" I nodded. "They reused my signature. It's from a 2018 home refi document." He flipped the page. "Well, they just opened the door you've been building." We began cataloging receipts. $3,000 for Jasper's knee surgery, $4,200 for Lucian's failed business, Venmo logs, wire confirmations, even birthday money I'd transferred just because. Every transaction was archived, labeled, time-stamped. I wasn't seeking vengeance, I was submitting proof. That night, I pulled out a separate folder labeled Tribute Full. The original video clips I'd uploaded months ago, the same ones they said were missing from the birthday montage. I reached out to a journalist, used an alias, sent over the edited version first, the one Lucian posted on YouTube titled A Father's Legacy. The video had gone semi-viral in our community. Then I sent mine, uncut, undeniable. I attached a brief summary. "In the public version, I'm gone. In this one, I'm not." An hour later, I got a reply. "This isn't just a family fight," she wrote. "This is calculated defamation." We met at a quiet coffee shop near the courthouse. She was young, sharp-eyed, and came with a camera bag and a legal pad. I gave her everything: voice recordings, screen captures, old emails Lucian had forwarded about rebranding family legacy. She listened more than she spoke. 2 days later, the article dropped. Architect erased: the hidden truth behind a viral fundraiser. My name trended on local Twitter. The story ran on community radio, picked up by 2 mid-tier blogs. It included side-by-side video comparisons, quote call-outs, a segment on women being written out of their own narratives. I didn't repost it. I didn't even comment. I let the facts bleed out. By Sunday morning, Lucian's fundraiser was down by 30%. Jasper's old co-workers started leaving cryptic Facebook comments. "Didn't know that side of you, man." Church members deleted their previous shares and quietly changed their profile photos. Some pretended they'd never commented at all. People who had called me cold suddenly emailed apologies, thin ones. If we'd known, we never meant. You're so strong. Marisol posted a blurry Bible quote on Instagram. Jasper stayed offline. Lucian removed his bio line that said entrepreneur. Legacy builder. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, watching morning light slide across the railing. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt still. The silence I'd once used to keep peace was now echoing back at them, letting truth fill the space. That evening I received a message from my attorney. Emergency hearing request. They want to negotiate. I stared at the screen, then replied, they can send it in writing. I walked to the cabinet, pulled out the cover page of my binder. Across the top, Exhibit A, the truth they buried. I laid it flat on the table, ran my finger across the edge, then shut the folder. The day after the exposé dropped, I woke up not to a ringing phone, but to silence. Not the kind that soothes, the kind that confirms something has broken, and no one plans to fix it. My inbox was full. Reporters asking for quotes, old college friends offering support, vague apologies from distant cousins, the people who mattered most. Nothing. No call from Jasper, no text from Marisol. Lucian, dead silent. Being right doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like standing alone in a room full of people who once swore they loved you, now just avoiding eye contact. I opened my laptop, pulled up the article again. Architect erased. There it was, front and center. My name, my work, my voice. It was public now. The evidence, the erasure. My side of the story, but none of it gave me back the years I'd spent questioning myself. Later that afternoon, a message from Marisol arrived. Please meet me. I have something to give you. Just talk to me. I hesitated. Then replied, neutral ground, public, 1 hour. We met at a small cafe near downtown. I wore sunglasses. She wore guilt. She didn't order anything, just slid a manila envelope across the table. I wasn't supposed to show you this, she said softly, but it was always meant for you. We just didn't want you to carry the stress. I opened it. Debt paperwork, credit cards, utility balances, some old home maintenance invoices, all in my name. I don't understand, I said, though I did. We thought you'd be better at handling it, and your father, he couldn't bear Lucian knowing. So you plan to hand this over when... my retirement party? Her voice cracked. It was always yours. I pulled out my phone, took a photo of every page, then pushed the envelope back across the table. Keep it. She looked confused. I'll handle the facts. You keep the delusions. I stood and walked out without waiting for her reply. Later that evening, I opened the mail. A padded envelope from the city hospital where Mom had been treated. Inside, a wooden plaque engraved, "In deepest gratitude, the Frost family." No mention of me, no Odessa, just them. I called the development office. Yes, ma'am, the rep said. Mr. Hale made the donation in the family name. We assumed... You assumed wrong, I said. I have proof. I'd like the plaque corrected. Of course. We're deeply sorry. I didn't call for an apology. I called for accuracy. I hung up, opened my journal, wrote, they even stole my gratitude, but I still have my records. The next morning, I went to the neighborhood supermarket, the one where I used to run into everyone, Lucian's old teachers, my high school principal, friends of Marisol who'd hugged me when Mom passed. They didn't hug me now. They didn't even make eye contact. I walked past the produce aisle. A woman glanced at me, then quickly turned back to the oranges. Another checked her phone like I wasn't standing right in front of her, and then I heard it. Soft, but unmistakable. She's the one who really built that business, not him. A pause. Well, it makes sense now. The people who used to praise Lucian as a rising star now whispered like I was a scandal in heels. I didn't correct them. I didn't smile. I simply picked up my items and made my way to checkout. In the parking lot, loading bags into the back seat, I paused. I remembered a quote from Maya Angelou. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I had believed the excuses, the context, the confusion. Never again. From now on, I wouldn't chase apologies. I wouldn't look for closure in people who'd erased me while smiling to my face. As I returned the cart, I saw him. Lucian. Across the lot. He looked smaller, tired. The tan was gone. His eyes were sunken. No designer jacket, just a wrinkled hoodie and jeans that didn't fit right. He noticed me, took a step forward. I held his gaze, didn't flinch. He opened his mouth. I got in the car, started the engine, pulled out without hesitation. In the rearview mirror, I whispered, "You don't get to rewrite my story anymore." I stepped into my attorney's office at exactly 9:01 a.m. Folders in hand, hair tied back, purpose zipped into every movement. No more delays, no more debating. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about consequences. "Morning," my lawyer said, nodding with a slight grin. "You came ready." I dropped the stack of organized documentation on his desk. "That's every dollar, every message, every forged form," I replied. "If they want war, we're doing it by the book." He flipped through the tabs, muttering approvingly. "You've got enough here for more than a countersuit. Fraud, emotional abuse, libel, identity misuse, and that's just off first glance." "We're not just responding anymore," I said. "We're going on the offensive." He nodded. "You sure you want to move forward?" I didn't hesitate. I used to want closure. Now I want paper trails and frozen assets. He began drafting filings for restraining orders, motions to seize documentation, and asset holds on the family home. I signed each line with steady strokes. By the time I left, I wasn't shaking. I was building. It was almost noon when I received a voicemail from someone I hadn't spoken to in months, my ex-boyfriend's sister. "Odessa, hey, listen, I just got off the phone with my brother. He's really weirded out. Apparently your mom called him, asked if he'd co-sign a mortgage, something about it being in your best interest. I don't know what's going on, but maybe you should talk to him." I stared at my phone. My lungs froze. Marisol had reached out to my ex, someone completely uninvolved, to secure a mortgage using my name and implied stability. I called him immediately. "Yeah," he answered, voice cautious. "She called out of the blue. Told me you weren't doing well. Said she was trying to protect the family home and asked if I'd be willing to sign something on your behalf since I was still listed as a former emergency contact on some document." "She really said that?" "Verbatim. I told her to lose my number." "I appreciate it," I replied. He hesitated. "Are you okay?" "I'm just documenting the storm," I said, then hung up. I labeled the incident. Third-party manipulation, mortgage attempt, documented it, filed it. That evening, I was finally winding down with tea when the phone rang again. This time it was Marisol. Her voice cracked immediately. "Odessa, I'm not well." I said nothing. "I've been having chest pains. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I don't sleep. The church has stopped calling. The neighbors stare." Still, I waited. "You're destroying your family," she whispered. "What will people say if I die from this stress? What will your future children think, knowing what you did to your mother?" There it was. Not a threat. A calculated guilt trip. I pressed record on my second phone without a word. "I was a good mother," she continued. "I gave everything. And you're throwing dirt on my name for what? Money? Some old paperwork?" I ended the call without responding, then forwarded the file to my lawyer. Subject: psychological coercion attempt, maternal. He replied within minutes. "We're tightening the motion for emotional manipulation. Good job." I exhaled. This wasn't just public humiliation anymore. It was textbook coercive abuse. The next morning, I sat across from a legal assistant at the courthouse. "We're filing for full title control," I told her. "No ambiguity, no dual claims." She flipped through the deeds and proof. "This will hold." "This house isn't just property," I said. "It's the stage they use to gaslight me. And now, it'll be a fortress." My lawyer later confirmed, Jasper had officially been subpoenaed for trust fund misuse. His financials were flagged. A hearing was set. It would be the first time I'd be in the same room as all three of them since that dinner. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Back home, I opened my journal. Wrote one sentence. "Sometimes we grieve the dream of a family, not the people in it." I closed it. No tears, just plans. Later that day, a courier dropped off a certified letter. I didn't open it right away. I brewed coffee first, fed the dog. Then, sitting at my kitchen island, I peeled it open. Request for settlement discussion, from Hale family attorney. I smiled, didn't even read the body, just walked it to my bedroom, opened my filing drawer, and slid it into a folder labeled, "Too late." Then I returned to my planner, where the court date was circled in red. "They can't rewrite this ending," I whispered. "I've already written it in ink." I used to hate silence, the kind that lingers after an unanswered call or fills the space when someone walks out and doesn't come back. It used to make me feel abandoned. Now it felt like armor. My mornings became deliberate. Wake at 6, stretch, coffee, legal prep, therapy. Then a quiet walk. No music, no podcasts, just the rhythm of my shoes on the sidewalk and the weight of everything that no longer touched me. My phone buzzed endlessly. Jasper, Marisol, a few cousins, Lucian, once. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. Whatever they had to say, they'd already screamed in headlines and behind my back. I taped a new quote on the fridge last night. "The ones who break you don't get to decide how you heal." Today, I was finalizing my victim statement, my truth, on record, in court. No rage, just facts. "I did not abandon them," I wrote. "They abandoned truth." That same afternoon, I met with my financial advisor to finalize the asset freezes. Midway through our meeting, she frowned, pulling up an old savings account. "This joint account, are you still using it?" "No," I said. "That's from college." "You should see this." I leaned forward. Transactions, withdrawals. My early scholarship deposits, money I'd saved for grad school, for a down payment, gone, used. "Who accessed this?" I asked. "Secondary signer," she replied, hesitating. "Marisol Quinn." I didn't flinch. Car payments. Emergencies, one labeled as Lucian's deposit, another simply marked urgent. I printed the statements silently, added them to the growing binder in my bag, titled that section, "Future Stolen." They hadn't just drained my savings, they built their survival on what was supposed to be my start. That evening, over dinner, I invited an old IT friend to help scan my devices, not out of paranoia, but diligence. After an hour of poking around my tablet, he looked up. "You've got tracking software on here." "What kind?" "Browser history." "A financial app activity. Someone's been watching your moves." I sat back. "How'd it get there?" He paused. "Installed manually, maybe when you were home?" I nodded once. "The birthday party?" He ran the log deeper. One name surfaced from a partially encrypted admin account. Jasper. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel surprised. I copied the logs to a flash drive, labeled it Digital Surveillance, Hale, and handed it to my attorney the next morning. He looked up after reading. "This changes the tone completely." I nodded. "Good." For the rest of the week, I closed everything. Old bank accounts, shared utilities, passwords reset, access revoked, titles transferred. I erased them from every document they'd once claimed to help me with. On Saturday, I walked past the family home. I didn't pause in the driveway. I didn't look up at the porch. There was no ache, no pull. I wasn't part of its history anymore. That night, I wrote a letter, not to send, but to release. "You no longer have access, not to my name, not to my mind, not to my future." I folded it, slid it into my journal, closed it for the last time. Monday came fast. The courthouse lot was half full when I arrived. My lawyer was already inside. I walked up the steps slowly, calm, heels hitting the stone with quiet certainty. Near the entrance, I saw her. Marisol, standing alone, coat buttoned wrong, face pale. She saw me, straightened slightly. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. I looked at her, held her gaze, then walked right past her. Not a glance back. They'll say I never looked back. They'd be right. I arrived at the courthouse 35 minutes early, not because I was anxious, because I was ready. Charcoal suit, low bun, no makeup, no apologies. My attorney met me at the bottom of the steps. "You sure you want to speak first?" he asked. "I've waited long enough," I said. Inside, the room buzzed low, the type of hum that precedes a verdict. Jasper and Marisol arrived late. Lucian trailed behind them, his eyes glued to the floor. None of them looked toward me. The judge entered. We stood. We sat. Then he said, "Miss Quinn, you may proceed." I walked to the front, placed my notes down, spine straight. "My name is Odessa Quinn. I'm not here out of bitterness. I'm here to correct the record." I looked directly at them. For years I was asked to give, to sacrifice, to support, to forgive, and for years I did. I gestured to the binders we had prepared. These are not accusations, they are confirmations, financial records, property deeds, email logs, and silence. I paused. My silence was never consent. It was the only thing I owned, until now. The room stayed quiet as I walked back to my seat. We broke for recess. In the hallway, I felt her before I saw her. Marisol. She stumbled forward. "Odessa, wait!" Her knees buckled dramatically. "I'm not well, please, you're killing your mother!" I didn't flinch. She collapsed to the wall, fake sobbing. We were scared. We didn't know what to do. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone. Hit record. "This is the last time I allow guilt to be weaponized," I said calmly. She froze. My attorney approached, and I handed him the phone. Back in court, the judge reviewed the motion for restraining order. Within 10 minutes, it was approved. Marisol was served before she could gather her purse. Outside, the sun had shifted high. Shadows curled behind the building. A local news crew stood just beyond the steps. One of them waved toward me. I ignored him. The journalist who had covered the original exposé nodded from the crowd. She didn't speak, just lifted her camera. The courthouse door opened behind me. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. "She bought the house back," someone whispered. I didn't confirm. I didn't correct. I just held the keys. That evening, a sheriff's deputy knocked on the door of the house that once belonged to the family. Lucian opened it. Pale, defeated, he signed the eviction paperwork without a word. Neighbors watched from their porches. No one clapped. No one protested. It wasn't spectacle. It was consequence. A week later, I unlocked the front door to a silent house. Empty, but not hollow. I walked the hardwood floor slowly, room to room. No ghosts, no traps, just possibility. I didn't move in. I rebuilt it. New paint, safer locks, updated wiring. Then I signed the final renovation contract and transferred the property, not to a buyer, but to a program. It would become transitional housing for women recovering from financial abuse. The plaque on the gate read, "The Quinn Foundation Home, in honor of those who paid silently." When I signed the final donation form, the line beneath my name didn't say daughter. It said founder.